Hello, I'm joining you live. I'm just trying to see my connection. Oh no. All right, hopefully my connection is good. I'm, as you can see, in the forest here, but I'm in a suburb, so it should be okay. Today, I wanted to continue my discussion about self-injurious behaviors. So last time I did a live about this, I talked about making sure you rule out that your child is experiencing pain and that self-injurious behavior is due to experiencing pain within their body. And you would need to see a medical practitioner for that, or also just look at what's happening in the environment. Where are they hitting themselves? Could it be a headache? Could it be that they injured their shoulder, so they're hitting that? Is it that they've got a scrape on their knee and they're banging their knee? Okay, so that's the first thing. We really want to rule out any medical concerns. Do they have a stomach ache? So with all behaviors, no matter what they are, we want to look at what is the possible medical reason for this and get that addressed, because it's not fair for us to say be punitive or punish our child for a behavior that is simply because they're in pain and they can't communicate it. In fact, it's never, I think, rational to punish our children for their behaviors in a really highly aversive way, because often they're for a pretty major reason, especially when our kids struggle with regulation, communication, and a lot of other self-care skills and all that. So anyway, rule out that medical component. The second thing I wanted to talk about for self-injurious behaviors is one reason could be to escape something. So in the pain realm, they are engaging in self-injurious behaviors to escape the pain, right? So that's one reason to escape something. Another reason to escape could be things like demands or non-preferred environments, right? Often we do have quite a big reaction when our kids are injuring themselves, because it's a big concern, totally fair. But we might need to look at, okay, have I gone into an environment that my child doesn't usually like? Have I given them a demand that they don't really like? Have I asked them a question? Sometimes simply asking your child a question can be perceived as a demand. Are they perceiving my interaction with them as being demanding? Maybe it's just a look. So I'd really love you to be very aware of your body language, your tone of voice when you're engaging with your child. And is that potentially being interpreted as a demand? So that's your first step to do. Be an investigator, right? You're putting on your detective hat to figure out what is the why behind their behavior. So if it is a perceived demand, we have a few things that we can do. I always love to start with proactive strategies. So pre-warning your child that a demand is coming can be helpful enough, right? Some of our kids, they just need a bit of warning. They need a bit of time to process the expectation, and they need to have a bit more autonomy in the scenario, so a bit of more control, so that they do this thing that you're wanting them to do in their own time. Looks like I just dropped out. Okay, I'm back. So I was saying that we need to provide some prior warning that an instruction is happening, right? So it might be telling them, do you know what? A no response is about to come. I'm about to give you a no. Are you ready? And they may be like, no, I'm not ready. And then you're like, okay, I'll give you some time. I'll put my timer on. I'll come back in 2 minutes. And so it might be that simple processing time that's going to be helpful. Oh, it looks like I'm having troubles with my Facebook Live today. Hopefully you can still see me. I can't see myself. So we're going to try and pre-warn, right? If your child is struggles with receptive instructions, you might show a visual to indicate to them that they're going to have to listen, or whatever the demand is. Maybe they're going to have to pack away, so you show that visual and you then give them time to process. Right, so firstly, give prior warning and time to process. Give them that space. I know it's not always possible, but when you can, acknowledge and honor their non-preference for something. Like if they're like, no, I don't want to pack away now, or you see them start to like escalate a little bit, maybe they don't say anything, but they go, ah! You can be like, okay, it looks like this is tricky. I'm going to give you 5 minutes of playing and then we'll pack away, right? So you're giving that prior warning and you're honoring their cues that they're not quite ready yet to follow that demand, okay? The second step is that we think about the demand and how can we make it more fun or less difficult, right? So think about yourself. When you're going into a difficult situation, what have you done to be able to cope better with it, right? Sometimes we might listen to some calming music before we go into a really stressful meeting. Sometimes we might do some deep breaths, right? We might do some meditation techniques before we go into a super important meeting. Maybe we're about to go on a really big trip somewhere, so we're going to take a nap before we go. There are lots of different strategies. I love using music. I think for a lot of kids, music can be calming. Headphones can block out the external environment as well. So playing your child's favorite song as you're making the demand and transitioning from something to something else. So pairing an aversive or a non-preferred with a preferred or positive stimuli, whatever that might be. Maybe it's a squishy, they get their favorite squishy ball to make the transition, or to have to pack away their other toys. They get to hold the squishy ball as they pack away. So that's another idea. We need to be creative. So you need to look at what works for your child and what their preferences are and use that. So pairing, okay? So 1 is to give prior warning. 2 is to pair the non-preferred with a preferred or something that's relaxing and enjoyable. Number 3 is to support your child to refuse if they can, right? So you want to sometimes set up opportunities where they can practice this skill of saying, I don't want to, and they get the outcome they want. That can de-escalate the self-injury or any other behavior in the moment. And we do want to try to de-escalate. Now, it's not always possible to give your child what they want or to accept a no. So that's okay. We can work through that. There are other tools we can take to practice. But if your child learns that they can communicate and get what they want, this is much better than them learning to hit themselves to get what they want or to avoid what they don't want, right? So in this situation, we're talking about avoiding demands, so avoiding a non-preferred, and we want to teach them that they can say no and that they can escape the demand by saying no as opposed to hitting their head. It might not be a no, it might be pointing to a no button on their iPad. It might be exchanging a visual of no thanks. It might be saying, I don't want to. So you need to figure out what level your child is at, make it easy for them to attain, and give them the outcome they want when they use a more appropriate behavior. Okay, so that's the teaching part, okay? We've got teach that skill of refusing. Now, our next step is in some situations, we follow through. Well, ideally we would follow through eventually, right? We've done proactive strategies, we've supported them to communicate effectively, and then at some point in time, we just do need to do what the expectation is. So then I would get you to think about how can you break this demand down to make it easier for them. So maybe you've said, you need to clean up your whole room. This is a mess. please clean up your whole room, and they're having a big meltdown and starting to punch their leg perhaps and scream no. So what we want to do is think about, how can I make this easier for them? Maybe instead of the whole room, because that's overwhelming, and our kids struggle with what we call executive functioning, which is being able to plan and organize what's happening. You might say, okay, I'm going to create a circle. We just need to pack away these toys. Okay, or you're going to pack up most of the room, and then you leave 3 toys for them to pack away, and then they can be successful. Okay, so break it down. That's another step. Now, my final tip here is to reinforce your child when they transition. So when I say reinforce, that might be praise for your child. It might be providing a quick experience with a preferred toy. It might be giving them squishes. It might be spinning them around, right? So we want our children to learn that when they do follow an expectation, even if they've needed prompting, that they get reinforced and it doesn't have to be so bad. So think about that as well. And I often like to use the phrase prompt then praise, and that praise might also be reinforcement as well. It might be blowing some bubbles, or they get 10 minutes with another toy that they really love, or they get thrown in the air or something like that, squishes on the couch, whatever works. So think about, how do I prompt my child through this? How do I praise and reinforce them for it? Prompt, then praise. Okay, they are the tips for you today. I know that was a lot of information, but think about what you can do there, what you can apply in your own home. And remember that pre-teaching is highly important. We need to set up opportunities that are easy for our kids to follow and get the positive outcome they want, so they'll better cope in the future with that similar situation when it's presented in real life. I will harp on about this lots and lots more in the future. If you would like to learn more, I do have other one-on-one supports and group supports and online supports. So get in contact with me. Feel free to put a comment or a DM me and letting me know you want to learn more. I do have opportunities for a free behavior solutions call, where I talk to you about what are your real pain points and what you really need to work on with your child right now, and what you really want to change, and what you can do to make that change right within the next week or 2. So I have very specific, very specific tools that you can use and strategies in the moment. And then I also help you look at what you might need, or what might be helpful in the longer term for you and your child, because behaviors do keep coming up. Our kids are learning and growing. They don't, they're still learning to cope with this world. So it's not a fix one thing, you fix everything. It is a process. But once you get an understanding of how to teach, you can guide your child through anything and everything. So let me know in the comments, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.